It's a nice thing for our animals to eat well. Just like us, we need to eat well. And you know how people, when they eat well, they look very good. Your animals will also look beautiful once they eat very well. That's why we are talking about banana grass. This is like the pizza in the animal world. When you look at your forage sorghum, this is the ice cream in the animal world. That is what we're going to be talking about today. This episode is going to be talking about feed for goats, sheep, beef animals, dairy animals, as well as your chickens. Now, first of all, what is a pasture? A pasture is land that is set aside for grazing our livestock, be it cattle, sheep, or goats. There are two types of pasture. We have our natural pasture as well as improved pasture. Now today we're going to be mainly dwelling on our improved pasture. There are two types of pasture that are common. We have irrigated pasture as well as dryland pasture. Now let me start with the dryland pasture. And under dryland pasture, we have two categories. We have our natural pasture as well as our improved pasture. Now, natural pasture is just our ordinary grass which is made up of low quality nutritional value as well as low yields. When we look at our improved pasture, we have pastures that have been selected specifically for certain characteristics, which include high nutritional value, very high yields, as well as good digestibility. Don't feel like it's a disadvantage if you do not have irrigation on your farms. There are several species that actually do very well under dryland. When we talk of dryland, we are talking of the natural rain-fed pasture. We have several species which are well adapted to that have been screened. Take for example Catambora, even the most common one, lucerne. These actually do very well in dryland conditions. They've been grown in Zimbabwe from region 1 right up to region 5, and farmers have been benefiting. There's been a change in the condition of livestock, of farmers using some of these pastures. So don't always shy away from pasture production just because you think you are in a very dry area. You can actually do your pasture. Common pasture species, we have two categories. That's our legumes as well as grasses. For grasses, we have several types that are well adapted to our climate in Zimbabwe. We have Catambora, we have forage sorghums, we have banana grass. All these are grass species that are very good for our cattle, sheep, as well as goats. And their advantage is they provide our diet with energy as well as fiber. Now, our other category, we have legumes. Under legumes, we have lucerne, we have velvet bean, we have lab. These are all adapted to all regions in Zimbabwe, from region 1 to region 5. Now, let me get into detail with some of these pastures. When we look at Catambora is very ideal for hay. It makes good quality hay. And remember, our hay is grass that we have conserved. This is grass that we have dried, and it is able to sustain our livestock during the dry season. So during the growing season, we grow our Catambora and then harvest it and then dry it and bale it so that we can have adequate feed. And it's one of its advantages that it maintains a very good nutritional value even when it is dry. When we talk of banana grass is a grass that is well adapted to areas that are waterlogged. If you look at our flails, you find that there is very poor grass species in there. Our livestock are not able to be sustained with just those ordinary grasses. Now, what are the advantages of banana grass? Banana grass, you are able to utilize your flails, and if you look at flails on your farm, you're going to realize there is poor grass growing within the flails. So you can actually increase the amount of grass production per unit area on your farm by growing banana grass. It is very productive. You can expect yields of up to 25 tons per hectare using banana grass. Another common improved pasture grass is forage sorghum. Forage sorghum is a high yielding pasture grass and it's a very nutritious. It is very good in terms of yields as well as nutritional value. When we look at its nutritional value, we are looking at protein content ranging from 13 to 15%. In terms of yields, we are looking at around 25 to 30 tons per hectare. This I'm talking from experience, not just from theory. We have had testimonies in areas such as Midlands where farmers have been having very high yields and making a lot of silage out of it, as it is one grass that you can use to make silage. When we talk of yields in terms of forage production, we are looking at dry matter. Now, what is dry matter? Dry matter is the amount of material that is left behind in a grass or in a legume after all the water has been removed from that material. So it is usually expressed as a percentage of the initial weight. This is just an introduction. We are going to be going into depth in our next episodes, looking at Katambora, velvet bean, lucerne, sun hemp, as well as forage sorghum. Let me give you an example of something that we can relate to. Take an example of our porridge products that we have. A child who grows up having instant porridge has their own rate of growing. A child who grows up having maize plus peanut butter has their own rate of growing. And if you look at a child who just has plain maize, you are going to see that they have their own rate of growing. Now, I'm not going to tell you which child is going to be better, but I'm sure from experience you know. I also want to touch on legumes. Now, legumes are an important protein source for our livestock. Remember, during the dry season, our livestock tend to reduce in terms of body condition. Now, legumes are good in terms of supplementation of protein. What do we have under legumes? We have our common lucerne, we have lablab, we have velvet bean, we also have sun hemp. These also fall under their categories. Or if we look at lucerne, lucerne is under a perennial species, and if we take a look at lablab, sun hemp and velvet bean, these are annuals whereby we can grow them. We have to grow them every year. Legumes have high protein content. The range for the most common legumes that I have mentioned, the range of their protein content ranges from 13%, and it can even go up to 22% depending on management as well as time of cutting. We always need to remember that the time that we cut our pasture is very important. Now, let's take a look at nutritional value of pasture. There are two main things that we look at in terms of nutritional value. First of all, we look at the protein content within that pasture, and the second thing we look at is the digestibility of that pasture. Now, protein content varies within the different pasture species. If we look at Katambora, it ranges from 8% to 12%. But what we need to remember is that Katambora, when we compare it to other grasses, it is able to maintain high nutritional value as compared to other grasses when they are dried. Another grass is banana grass. Banana grass It has a protein range of 7 to 9%, and it is very digestible. That's digestibility ranges from 70 to 80%. If we look at forage sorghum, it also has the same range of 7% to 9%. Now, all these pastures that I've been talking about are not only for livestock feed. You can also use them as multi-purpose crops in terms of improving soil fertility, as well as reducing erosion. Now let me talk about the agronomy of pasture. How do we establish our pastures? First of all, we need to make sure we have a very fine seed bed. Why is that seed bed important? It is because pasture seed is very small. Most of our pasture seed is very small. If you look at Katambora seed, if you look at lucerne, the size is very small. So we need to make sure our land is well prepared and with a fine tilth. How do we plant it? Right. We take our seed and we mix it with sand. Why is this sand important? This sand enables us to distribute our seed evenly, because if you look at 1 kg of lucerne, you are talking of more than 10 million seed within that 1 kg. So to try and distribute that across a hectare is going to be difficult unless you mix it with sand. So rule of thumb is we mix 1 part seed with 2 parts of sand. We also need basal fertilizer. This is very important for root development, and we recommend that we use single superphosphate or double superphosphate. If it's single superphosphate, we recommend a rate of 200 to 250 kgs. That's for both our legumes as well as our grasses. If lucerne takes 2 months to maturity and Katambora takes 3 to 4 months to maturity, am I saying that lucerne is better? I wouldn't say so. But what we need to understand is that the uses of these pasture are varied. Take for example Katambora, as I mentioned earlier, Katambora is very good when we want to make hay. Katambora takes between 3 and 4 months to maturity. Lucerne, we can start harvesting it at 8 weeks, that is 2 months. Lucerne definitely sounds like it is the best pasture species for a farmer to grow for their cattle. But is that so? What I would recommend is that you grow both of these, because our sheep, they need both the fiber, the good quality roughage from the Katambora, and they also need the good quality protein from the lucerne. So when we mix both of these, the lucerne as well as the Katambora, we have a very good wholesome meal. Remember, our animals, they are ruminants. They have 4 stomachs. Within these stomachs, there's what we call the rumen, whereby there are bacteria which live symbiotically with the animal. And these bacteria are the ones which break down the grasses as well as the legumes to release nutrients which an animal can then take up. So these bacteria need to be fed with a very good quality fiber, and we get this from Katambora. And then from our lucerne, we get good quality protein, which then makes our animals very big and strong. If it's milk, we have high milk yields.
Farmers, my name is Justice Chembela, an agronomist with ZFC Limited. Today we are going to talk about the fertilizers that are used in pastures. We are going to look at legume pastures and grass pastures. And an example of legume pastures will be lucerne, and an example of grass pastures will be Katambora rhodes grass. A legume is a dicotyledon. That means when it germinates, it's different from a grass, which is a monocotyledon. When we look at legumes, they have this important ability of biological nitrogen fixation. This means that they can fix the nitrogen from the atmosphere, whereas grasses cannot perform biological nitrogen fixation. Legumes are dicotyledons, and examples of dicotyledons will be your sugar bean. And also when we look at pastures, lucerne is also a dicotyledon, whereas when we look at grasses, examples include maize. And when we look at pastures, catambora rosegrass and kikuyu will be examples of monocotyledons. When we look at fertilizers, when a farmer is choosing fertilizers for their pastures, we have to take consideration of the macronutrients that include nitrogen, phosphorus, and also potassium. When we take a closer look at legumes, they have got a higher demand for the nitrogen and phosphorus. So fertilizer selection will be based on fertilizers that are rich in nitrogen and phosphorus. Phosphorus is crucial for root development in legumes, and you will see that nodulation would take place in the roots. So therefore, our fertilizers should be rich in phosphorus for the legumes to thrive and also produce higher yields. When choosing fertilizers, we also look at the micronutrients. The micronutrients are the trace elements that are important, which make up protein structures such as sulfur. When choosing fertilizers for lucerne, the farmer can come in with single superphosphate. Single superphosphate is high in phosphorus and also high in sulfur. Therefore, this would give good root development to the pasture, which is lucerne, and also at the same time give lucerne vigorous growth. When we look at pastures, we look at quality, and quality is in the form of the crude protein, the protein content, and sulfur constitutes of that protein content. So therefore, single superphosphate contains sulfur, and that sulfur will be critical for constituting of the protein content of lucerne. When pastures established, it means that the farmer now needs to maintain the pasture so that when they come in with cuts, the pasture is still well established. The farmer can come in with top dressing fertilizers such as your ammonium nitrate, and they can also supplement with foliar fertilizers. There are foliar fertilizers such as Quick Start, Quick Grow, which will help boost the crop. Quick Start is rich in phosphorus, which means that there is going to be good root development. And Quick Grow will give that vigorous growth, that vegetative growth. The farmer can also come in with foliar fertilizers such as Foliar 15, which contain trace elements such as your sodium, your molybdenum. Molybdenum is so crucial as it will constitute part of the key enzymes that are used in photosynthesis. When taking a closer look at fertilizers that are required for grasses, we see that these grasses can either be established through seeds or even they contain underground structures, and these underground structures would need good establishment through fertilizers that are rich in phosphorus. So farmers can plant with single superphosphate as a basal fertilizer in their grasses, in the catambora rosegrass, and even in kikuyu. Farmers can come in with top dressing of ammonium nitrate so as to give a good vegetative growth. When we take a closer look at ammonium nitrate, it contains nitrogen. Nitrogen is important in giving the grass a good leaf area index. When the leaf area is good, this means that the grass has good photosynthetic area, which will translate to good yields and a good vegetative growth. The farmer can also come in with supplementary foliar fertilizers that will introduce nutrients to the leaves, and this will give good quality feed for the animals. The most common blunders that farmers make is that they tend to run for the general recommendation. But when we see when we take a closer look at the nature of our pastures, they are going to be there for a long time. They are going to be established for a long time. Therefore, we recommend that the farmer starts with soil analysis to see whether the soil is suitable, it has the correct pH, which promotes optimum crop growth, and even to take a closer look at the crop requirements for nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and even the trace elements. Therefore, the farmer has to start with soil analysis to be able to unlock the genetics in the pastures and get good yields. Another farming blunder is that farmers don't take note that for pastures we have to maintain. Therefore, after every cut, we have to come in with supplementary feed so as to provide more nutrients and give regrowth for pastures such as lucerne and Catambora rosegrass. So farmers can supplement with fertilizers that are rich in nitrogen and also in phosphorus so as to give good regrowth of the pastures. Weeds will compete for sunlight, space, nutrients, and water. Therefore, if not controlled, weeds will also cause a decrease in yield. Therefore, farmers, let's come in with early weed control so as to achieve high yields. In lucerne, farmers can come in with a pre-plant cleanup glyphosate at a rate of 3 liters to 5 liters per hectare. Farmers can come in 2 to 3 weeks prior planting so as to wipe up all weeds and to start with a clean field. When both lucerne and the weeds have emerged, farmers can come in with a post-emergent herbicide that is selective for grasses. Farmers can come in with fluazifop p-butyl at a rate of 1 liter to 3.5 liters per hectare depending on the height of the weed. For lucerne, farmers, let us be on the watch for leaf hoppers, and we can come in with control of Carbaryl 85 WP. Legumes will require an optimum pH of 6 to around 7. Therefore, farmers should be aware of acidic soils. We recommend soil testing. When the soils are acidic, this will have an effect on biological nitrogen fixation, the way the legumes will fixate the nitrogen so as to get high yields. Therefore, farmers, for effective biological nitrogen fixation, farmers should work with an optimum pH range. When the soils are acidic and they have got low levels of magnesium, farmers can come in with a soil correction of dolomitic lime. Dolomitic lime has a high magnesium to calcium ratio. When soils have a low ratio of calcium, farmers can come in with calcitic lime, which is a high ratio of calcium to magnesium ratio. Thank you very much, viewers. My name is Justice Chembela. Remember, this is just an introductory episode. We are going to do more in-depth episodes on pastures.
My name is Luis Taderera and I'm a pasture specialist. Remember, grass is the cheapest feed.
So I will start by defining what are non-conventional feed resources. Non-conventional feed resources are those feed resources or feedstuffs that have not yet been commercialized. You see that Zimbabwe have got a lot of those feed resources that farmers can actually be able to utilize and make money. Non-conventional feed resources includes plants like mupangara, which is Dicrostachys cinerea. So that's another that's a form of non-conventional feed resource which can be utilized by farmers and make money. The second feed conventional resource that I can actually talk about is Pileostigmathon the monkey bread, or masekesa. If you are going to harvest a lot of masekesa, you can actually be able to utilize them. When we did the nutritional composition, we found out that masekesa have got about 12% crude protein content. The third commodity that I can talk about is this. It's a weed. I know a lot of farmers, they don't like it. They use a lot of herbicide to make sure that they destroy it. When we did an analysis, we find out that it has about 15 to 17% crude protein content, and that crude protein content was actually, from the studies that we have done, was actually 56% digestible. So if it is 56% digestible and 16%, you are likely to make a very good recipe which you can actually use for your animals, and they will actually be able to do well. So in most areas, we have got plants like mpangara, we have plants like